One of the most unique things about the Borderlands games, other than the vast amount of loot, are the Vault Hunters. When most people reflect on who their favorite Vault Hunters were, they may mention characters like Salvador, Maya, Zane, Mose, maybe even some Borderlands 1 characters such as Lilith or Mordecai. However, a game that is sometimes overlooked is Borderlands the pre-sequel. The game did not have the best launch as there was a lack of dedicated drops, a weirdly paced story, and a lack of endgame content. I wonder why that happened. Even with these shortcomings, one thing they did properly with the game was the playable Vault Hunters. So much so that they reused a lot of the skills from those Vault Hunters to the Borderlands 3 characters. But we don't talk about that. I'm not going to be talking about all of the Vault Hunters in the pre-sequel, even though all of them are designed really well. But I will talk about one in particular, Jack the Doppleganger. Jack the Doppleganger, as I mentioned before, is a playable character in Borderlands the pre-sequel that was added after its launch date as a DLC character. He is, well, the Doppleganger of Handsome Jack, if you couldn't tell somehow. Not only was he one of the most fun and best performing characters from the pre-sequel, but in all of Borderlands history. Now, before I get my IP leaked and have everyone destroy my house into a million pieces, there's a method to my madness. Let's start with Can we get much higher? Jack's action skill, Expendable Assets, gives him 2 Digitrack clones of Jack that help him in combat. You can deploy and undeploy them with just a click of a button. This action skill alone is very strong compared to a lot of the Vault Hunters in the franchise. Similar skills such as Action's Turret and Gage's Death Trap are not as good, as they do distract enemies, but they do not have sufficient damage to help the Vault Hunters themselves. Not only that, but they die very quickly and only have 1 life. Jack's clones, however, can die as many times as they want and still return to the battlefield as if nothing happened to them. The core strength of the action skill is not only its utility, but the ability to do damage as an action skill. Which kinda brings us to Zane's clone and why I haven't mentioned it yet. Well, he's kinda busted. It's all because of his capstone, double barrel, which gets crazy mayhem scaling, which allows him to just melt anything in his path. Just watch any Zane clone build to see how crazy double barrel is. Without it, he's not really that good of an action skill. Even though Zane's clone outdamages the Digijacks have multiple uses that help the player themselves. More on that later. Now let's get into the skills that help strengthen him as a character. Even though all of the trees have their own strengths, the middle tree has the most damaging parts of his kit. Skills such as Collaborate, Integrity, Synergy, and Believe significantly boost his damage, whether it is crit damage or regular weapon damage. Other skills that help him with this are Accountability and Commitment, which both impact Jack's reload speed and fire rate. Most of the damage skills present here are tied to kill skills, however, which seems really inefficient as you have no way to get your damage off. There is a simple solution to this issue, however. The capstone of the tree, Leadership. Leadership allows the player to be awarded kill skills based off of when a clone dies. Now, what makes this even more broken is Jack's clones die when you move far away from them. So all you have to do is walk 2 steps and they despawn, which in turn gives you your kill skills. Jack has all the damage he needs at all times with a click of a button. Characters that usually rely on kill skills such as Krieg have a rough start because of the lack of damage they have without their kill skills. Of course, he gets significantly more powerful with just 1 kill, but he first has to acquire that 1 kill. Jack does not need to at all. All that can stop this ability is if Jack's action skill ends, which it will end eventually, right? Well, not quite. His left tree, the hero of the story, gives many benefits to Digijacks and their input into the combat loop. With skills such as Take Their Freedom and Resolute, it helps not only the survivability for you, but your Digijacks as well. Even though they can respawn, these skills help with another skill in the tree, Bolster, which makes the clones do even more damage the longer they live. There's even a skill, You Have My Shield, which, as it suggests, gives your shield to your clones, which makes them even more durable. The skills that help their cooldown rate, Best Foot Forward, allows kills to be transferred into action skill duration. In synergy with Leadership, you can have your action skill up forever and just cycle your kill skills. And not only that, your clones are still gonna just kick ass. Although there are not a lot of damage boosts to the clone in this tree, the capstone solves this issue. Promote the rank guarantees one of the first jacks that spawn in as a badass jack, which does more damage and is more tanky. When they despawn, there's a 33% chance that a new clone will spawn in as a badass clone. Although it may sometimes restrict the playstyle that is of higher pace, it does not hinder it completely and allows the player to play to its strengths of the skill. If the player wants two badass Digijacks to fend off enemies, he could do that. He might have to stand still and kind of just be around them, but if he wants to play like that, he can play like that. If he is fine with having one badass out occasionally and prefers movement, it also helps to play to that playstyle because the jacks on themselves already do a lot of damage, so the badass jack is just adding on to it. Other important notes of this tree are some important utility skills such as cash, which allows your clones to get stacks of cash after every kill. With 4 stacks of cash, you can throw a free grenade. And just compensation, which gives you max sizing grenade damage based off the lack of grenades you have. Keep note of these skills because they become more important later in the video. Finally, we get to the skill tree I love the most about this character, his free enterprise tree. We will start with Company Man, as it isn't as much of an important skill compared to the others. This just gives you more crit damage and accuracy with more Hyperion gear you have equipped. This is more for a Hyperion build, but it's also just good to note because it's a very powerful skill. Now let's get into the real meat and potatoes. Absolute advantage. After killing an enemy, you have a chance to not consume ammo. It does not seem crazy at first, however, with certain class mods, you can boost this up to an 88% chance of not consuming ammo, which results in this. Crazy damage output. It also works really well with, you guessed it, leadership, which lets you have this skill for an even longer duration. Even though the skill is very significant in a lot of builds for Jack, it is not a necessity and can sometimes actually hinder other builds. Another skill that is really cool is Money is Power. It is basically Anarchy, but with money instead. And now, all of a sudden, just because Jack has a skill similar to Gage, he is a mixture of Gage and Axton. I can't handle the slander comparing Jack to that dogshit character Gage. If you play Gage and have fun with it, you can go check into a mental asylum. I heard it's very nice there. Little fake. The difference between Anarchy and Money is Power is Jack does not need to rely on Money is Power. He has so many other damage opportunities that allow him to absolutely melt bosses. Gage needs Anarchy to accomplish anything. Not only that, but if you want to spend an hour killing enemies to get max Anarchy stacks, you can go and shoot a yellow crate for 15 and 20 minutes. See? They are crazy. Sure, Anarchy is more powerful than Money is Power, but it's not as fun as it makes you stress on how you play. Compared to Money is Power, which is just an added bonus to the damage you already have. And the damage it gives you is so crazy. Just watched a Release on 85 video on him killing the Invincible Sentinel with max stacks of Money is Power. Just absurd damage numbers. I got a little carried away with the Gage slander, so I'm going to talk about the capstone and move on. Sponsored by is one of my favorite capstones because of how simple it is to use and how it allows for more weapon variety. What the skill allows you to do is get the manufactured bonus based off the last weapon you used or had in your hand. For example, if you had a Torque weapon previously and switched to, let's say, a Jacob's pistol, the pistol would have 25% more explosive damage on it. You can use this capstone to give elements to non-elemental weapons by switching off of a Malon weapon. You can get a gun that has a lackluster reload speed, less time to reload, by switching off from a Tediore weapon. The possibilities are endless with this capstone, and it is very underrated. The real reason I went so in depth with each of his skill trees is because of all the useful skills he has in each tree. The majority of these skills have strong synergy with each other and have their own unique twist, which allows for the amount of build diversity Jack has is absurd compared to the other Vault Hunters. As I mentioned earlier, there is such a strong synergy with all of the skills he has, which in turn allows you to create separate builds on each of these synergies. Let's start with my favorite build, which is the CEO of EPO build. You're probably wondering why it is called the CEO of EPO, and the real reason is because of how much boost the main weapon of this build gets. The build uses the Flare, a Jacob shotgun, which is hugely benefited by a vast majority of Jack's skills. With Sponsored By, you can give the flare an element by switching from a Model 1 weapon. This in turn helps boost the damage output and makes the gun better for a variety of different enemies. Going down the greater good tree, you can pick up all the damage skills and leadership so you can keep up those said kill skills you picked up. Which leads to the most important kill skill of this build, Absolute Advantage. Remember that clip of EOS getting absolutely melted? Absolute Advantage gave us the ammo to deal with it. Not only that, but with the CEO of CEO's class mod, it boosts the skill from 40% to 88% chance of free ammo. And since our main damage weapon is a Jacob shotgun, we can become the average Minecraft Bed Wars player and spam the living hell out of the flare. Now you know why that's the name of the build. The second build is known as Seeing Triple, because I'm unoriginal. This one is pretty simple, as you use Promote the Rank and a very similar middle tree to the previous build, only picking up 2 skills outside of the previous build, Potential and Diversify, which helps with the clone's damage output. Pair that with the Celestial Doppleganger class mod, and the build absolutely mops the floor with mobs and badass enemies. It's not my favorite build, as you have to sacrifice a little bit of movement to get the most potential out of the build, but you still have a lot of damage output to contribute as well. The third and final build I will showcase today is a build I like to call Barba Jack, because he throws a ton of grenades. The Ravager and Bada Boom are good weapons for this build, but the main weapon is the Laser Discer. The damage output you can get out of this build is unlimited. Of course, I cannot forget the grenade mod. I like to use the Stormfront as it does really good damage over time. However, if you want a grenade that does instantaneous damage, then use the Snowball. It is practically the poor man's fastball in the pre-sequel. And you know how much I love the fastball. How does this build do insane damage? With Jack's cash and just compensation, the grenade damage is significantly boosted, which gives insane damage boost to the TDR reload of the Laser Discer. With Sponsored By, you can switch off of a scaff weapon and give your Laser Discer max size, which in turn gives the reload even more damage. With the Bomber Oz kit and the Best Man class mod, it just boosts your grenade damage numbers even more. In fact, this build does not even need leadership in order to produce the crazy damage numbers, as the skills needed for the grenade damage bonuses are not even kill skills. The final build I'll mention, but I don't really have the gear to show it, is the Hyperion build. It's practically the CEO of EPO build, however, you have some skill points spec'd into Company Man, and you use Hyperion gear to boost said skill. Nothing really much to it than that. The build opportunities are endless with this character. With each build, it promotes different playstyles. The CEO of EPO build promotes fast-paced gameplay to keep your skills up in order to dismantle the enemies. The Seeing Triple build is more slow-paced and allows you to deal with less pressure, as your clones are even more of a threat compared to what they were before. The Barba Jack build is more of a mix of this, as you can either spam grenades from a distance or run up to enemies and blast them point blank with the Ravager. The multiple options of playstyles is a stark contrast compared to the other Vault Hunters, which are bound to one playstyle. Salvador is an example of this, as a majority of his builds, if not all of them, require them to run point blank into enemies and melt their health bars. With Jack's synergy with his skills and the build potential he possesses, he's always a breath of fresh air compared to many of the other Vault Hunters. It's too bad he was put into a game that was unfortunately unfinished and had so much potential. That's all I really have to say about him as a character. Let me know in the comments what your opinion is of the Doppelganger, and if he really is the best designed Vault Hunter in the franchise. With that being said, I'm going to end this video with a quote-unquote speed kill of the Invincible Sentinel. I say that because I fumbled really badly during the fight, but I still wiped the floor with him. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.